Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It's me, Joey P. Joe P. And with me is my boy, Derek Brown, which means it must be Thursday, which means it's Thursday night football tonight. So we're going to go through this contest of his New Orleans Saints against the Arizona Cardinals. It's not been a good season for Arizona. Hopefully, it'll be a better game than the last few Thursday night football games. Oh, my goodness. Amazon is really ruining Thursday night football, but we're going to take you through the props, take you through a lot of other stuff. When I was here on Monday, I was very happy because I had a lot of discipline. I was close to making a few wagers, and then I pulled back on a few because I felt like, you know what? This game has too many outcomes. I don't like this at all. I'm going to have some discipline. Sometimes it's the wagers you don't make, but tonight, I think there's some things that we both can find appealing. And Derek Brown, hopefully this matchup is going to be more appealing than the last few games on Thursdays.
Yeah, I like today's game. I know the total is not sparkling and stuff, but I think we have two defenses that these offenses can, move the ball. We're going to talk about some of the matchups, a lot of the props that we're on for tonight, but I think we're going to get a surprising game. And I say that considering how bad the Cardinals have been over the last few weeks.
I see Josh is here in the chat. I see Philip in the chat. Josh says we need some good props because he needs to make some money. Well, don't worry, Josh. We got you covered. We got you, baby. Let's start off here and talk about the game itself. Let's set up everything. New Orleans is 2-4. Arizona is 2-4 as well. Arizona 2.5-point favorites here at home. The Saints are going to be rolling out another Andy Dalton game, which means you could get some Taysom Hill in this one, which creates chaos. But the Arizona defense is not very good. The number for this game is 43.5. If you like New Orleans, and I kind of do potentially in this game to upset the Cardinals at plus 124 on the money line, I think that has some appeal. But where do you want to start here, D-Bro? You like the spread? You like the over-under? You like the money line? None of the above, all the above? Where are you at?
I mean, you took the words out of my mouth, Joe. I like the Saints money line here. I think they win this game. The Cardinals, look, their secondary is playing a lot better, considering Byron Murphy and Marco Wilson, as bad as they were to start the season. They are playing better. We saw what they did versus Seattle, but the Saints can absolutely have a day, and I think we're going to get to some of the matchups and props we like, but I think a lot of that is going to be Alvin Kamara. I think a lot of that is going to be playing slow and allowing their defense to do some things versus Cardinals. So, yeah, give me the Saints money line. I'm not too big on the total because I think both of these teams could. I mean, I'm not going to say like disappoint as far as the score goes, but I'm going to stay away from the over under. I'm just going to hit the Saints money line.
I think with the 43.5, they'd have to play a little bit more mistake-free football. And I don't know if either of these teams are capable of doing that. I think that's my problem. A short week, less preparation time, and we're going to get to some of the injuries in this game too, because I think that's going to have an effect on it. But to me, whenever I'm looking for, totals 43.5 and this kind of numbers, anything under the 45 threshold, it's always about like, well, let's look at execution. Can these two teams execute? And now sometimes lack of execution leads to turnovers and opportunities. But I think this is more of a lack of execution than necessarily a mistake-prone situation here. So I don't know. For me, I'm just not feeling that. If anything, it's that money line for the Saints to win because I think the Saints are a better roster. And I think just from a standpoint of what we've seen from Cliff Kingsbury, regardless of the return of DeAndre Hopkins, it's been a little frustrating. But let's get to some of those injuries. Let's get to actually the flip side of the first thing to talk about, which is we've actually got a scenario where finally DeAndre Hopkins has returned. So that's very exciting. DeAndre Hopkins is back after a 6-week suspension, so he is going to play in tonight's game. On the Saints side of things, Andy Dalton is going to get the start. Adam Troutman is out for this game. We've also got Marshon Lattimore out for this game too. Jarvis Landry out, Michael Thomas out. So it's a lot of Chris Olave who has just been cleared from his concussion protocol. So let's talk about some of these individual pieces on the Saints. What does the Marshon Lattimore injury first and foremost mean for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals offense?
I mean, I think you're going to have Bradley Roby pushed out to the perimeter. That's going to bring the dust ball that is Chris Harris, who, yes, that Chris Harris played full-time slot for the Saints last week. He's going to be in the slot again this week. But on the outside, Bradley Roby has played really, really well, but on the opposite side to him, Paulson Adebo has been terrible. Like, he's almost got a perfect passer rating allowed. So I think the Cardinals are going to be able to move the ball through the air. I think they're going to stay away from Bradley Roby and pick on Adebo and pick on Harris in the slot. So we're going to talk about it. I mean, again, props and things like that. Like, there are some ways to attack this defense, and I think that's really two big ones for the Cardinals.
Speaking of the Cardinals, Robbie Anderson will be, quote, very limited in this game, end quote. No kidding. Our Marquise Brown obviously out. James Conner is going to be a game time decision, so don't feel real good about him. So expect more Eno Benjamin. Darrell Williams is not going to play in this one either, probably. And then we've got, of course, returning DeAndre Hopkins. So looking at these injuries, like even from a DFS standpoint, too, if you want to talk about this, I think they go right back. Don't skip a beat. Without Hollywood Brown, you're continuing to throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, and we're going to have Murray and Hopkins again because this wasn't an injury he was coming back from. This was a suspension. So more time for an older player, that's not a bad thing. So if anything, I'm just going to go right back to the Hopkins well, including my favorite personal wager of the night where, if you're looking to make some money here, it's DeAndre Hopkins plus 120 anytime touchdown scorer. I just think he's going to go right back in like an old shoe with Kyler Murray and not skip a beat. What are your thoughts about Hopkins' return?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Hopkins get into the end zone, so I like that call, Joe. I'm staying away because here's the thing. We could see a little bit of rust for Murray and stuff like that. So his receiving yardage prop and things like that, like I'm staying away from that. His reception line looks pretty good. It's at 5.5. So I have no problems betting the over there. And I'm pulling up to see where you can kind of get the best action as far as books. Yeah, I mean the over right now for DeAndre Hopkins, you can get plus odds at BetMGM. It's plus 120 for the over on 5.5. So if we think that Hopkins is going to get fed, then this is a pretty decent line considering.
See, to me, it's even where he gets fed more than to me, it's about getting him in the red zone active because that's like, can you get there and then get DeAndre the ball? And I think they can, especially with Lattimore out. That makes it a lot easier tonight. To me, that's something that I'm looking forward to. All right, let's get to some of the things that Debro has circled for all you guys. Let's start with Alvin Kamara. Over 4.5 receptions at plus 124 over on FanDuel. You like the over here on the 4.5. So let's talk about with Andy Dalton under center, how many receptions really Alvin might be able to get.
Yeah, I mean, you can get plus odds basically almost anywhere, Joe. I mean, BetMGM, DK, everywhere has got this at plus odds. And I think this line is wrong. Alvin Kamara has been drawing massive amounts of targets over the last 2 weeks. He's been flirting with almost 30 touches per game. And I think he's going to be one of the engines for the Saints this week, considering the Cardinals are, oh my gosh, they are so bad against running backs. They are 32nd in DVOA against running backs. They have given up they're in the top 10 as far as receptions allowed. So I think it's another week of Alvin Kamara getting plenty of targets. Now, if this was Jameis Winston under center, I would have a little bit more hesitation on that line, but I'm smashing the over for Kamara's receptions.
All right, let's go to the next one here. Now, we might fight about this one. Juwan Johnson, 26.5 receiving yards. You like the over on this one. DraftKings has it at minus 115. Why are you so into Juwan Johnson in this particular game? Is it just because of how bad the Cardinals are against tight ends, or do you really think that Andy Dalton is going to be looking his way?
I think it's twofold. I think it's one. Well, actually, we can break this down in 3 different ways. I think it's the Cardinals are extremely bad versus tight ends. Their corners are playing better, like I talked about with Murphy and Wilson on the outside, and Adam Troutman being out. We saw Juwan Johnson.
Well, and Landry and Thomas being out. So there's target share available. That's for sure.
Well, Juwan's route rate jumped up to 81%. And so with Troutman out this week, I think he's gonna be almost a full-time player. So you're looking at these lines. His ADOT has been healthy this year. I don't think he needs a ton of volume. I'm taking the over on his receiving yards and his receptions if you're building single game parlays here.
All right, let's get to the next one here on D-Bro's list of props. We'll talk about Juwan some more. The reception number is 2.5. You like the over or under on that one?
I love the over, and you can get this at plus money on a lot of different books. Last time I looked at it was plus 105 at BetMGM. I saw that it had been juiced in some spots.
And if you go over to bettingpros.com, you can always see all of the lines where they are and as they move. So always go over and place your bets over there because it's the easiest spot to go do it. But I guess if you like the over on the number, at 26.5 receiving yards, you got to like the over on the receptions too.
Yeah, and actually his receiving yards prop, since we just prepped for this show, has gone up from 20. It opened at 25.5. It's all the way up to 27.5 right now. So if you want the action, you better get it because it's still going up. You can still get plus odds on the over for his receptions at BetMGM. It's at plus 105. A few other books have it at like plus 105, plus 109, stuff like that. So really anywhere you can still get plus odds or plus money on taking the over. Our betting pros projections have it right even with 2.5. So
now you've discussed about how the Arizona Cardinals corners are playing better. So Olave's receptions are at 4.5. We talk about maybe the demand with some of those wide receiver injuries, the guys that are out like Thomas and Landry. Do you like the over on Olave's 4.5?
I like the over on his 4.5 receptions. I mean, Olave has hit this mark in three of his last 5 games, and one of those games, or no, sorry, excuse me, two of the last 4 games, and one of those games he left early versus Seattle. So we think that he's been getting fed targets, Joe. Like he's gonna probably draw double-digit targets in this game. Our betting pros projections have him at 5 receptions, and you can still. I'm looking down. It's been juiced a little bit, so it's minus 108, minus 110. You can go to BetMGM and it's even right now, so I'd hit it there before it actually moves more.
All right, fair enough. One more here for you. Andy Dalton, passing touchdowns, the number's 1.5. You like the over or under on this one?
So I know, and this is one of the more risky ones, but we're looking at just regression and things like that. Andy Dalton has not thrown for multiple touchdowns in any game, so I get that. And I just told you their corners are playing better. But there are attack avenues for Andy Dalton. I just talked about it. They give up a ton of production versus tight ends. They give up a ton of production versus running backs. He could throw 2 touchdowns and they go to Juwan and Alvin Kamara. And if you look at the Cardinals defense, they are top 10 in passing yards allowed, Joe. Now you look inside that top 10 and we talk about regression to the mean. 60% of those teams inside the top 10 have allowed double-digit passing touchdowns. The Cardinals are at 8 right now. So even just looking at how much volume they've given up through the air, touchdowns are going to follow, and I think it could happen in this game.
All right, let's move on to some of the other props that are over on the prop bet cheat sheet, some of our favorites that are there. Let's talk about Kyler Murray's rushing yards. The number's 33.5. The projection's at 36.5. If we take a look at the game log for Kyler Murray in the last few games here, he had 100 rushing yards against Seattle in the week 6, so that was certainly a big over there. 42 in week 5. So the last 2 weeks he's gone over this number. Do you think he can go over this number against the New Orleans Saints tonight?
I think he can because I think the offensive line for the Cardinals is pretty bad. So if the Saints have not been good at getting pressure to the quarterback, but if they can, Murray's going to have to scramble. And we saw last week, like, Eno is not going to do anything on the ground. Like, I was extremely high on him. The matchup was awesome versus Seattle, and he did nothing.
Yeah, so you can't even bet Eno yet right now as of us recording because everything's down there waiting for clarity about this backfield with the James Conner situation. So if there is a number posted for Eno, let's say it's 38.5, would you go under that number?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean to the under on his rushing yards.
Okay.
Maybe consider, I was going to say maybe if they post a receiving yardage or at least a receptions line, I would take the over.
Yeah, I'm trying to theoretically set in my head because I anticipate Connor not playing. I anticipate no Williams. So if Eno is indeed the guy again, I'm trying in my head. I think that number looks like something rushing yards, 38.5, receiving yards, maybe 25.5 or something like that. I'm just trying to ballpark it.
Well, and to be honest, Joe, I might stay away from those numbers only because Eno is entering this game with a foot injury. Now, I know he got in a full practice on Wednesday. The day before the weekends and things like that, they're walkthroughs, okay? So I take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. What I am interested, if we do get any kind of late lines posted before kickoff, if we get early news that Connor is out, we already know Darrell Williams is out. I'm kind of curious when we talk about these low prop lines, if we get any prop lines as far as for Keontae Ingram, I kind of like the overs if that happens to come to fruition, because we could see him work in tandem with Eno, which we didn't see that last week.
Yeah. I like some of these defensive props here because there's so many uncertainties with some of these offensive players too, in terms of health, in terms of who's coming
Mm-hmm.
in. I know Rondell Moore is a guy. We'll talk about him in a second, but Marcus Davenport to record a sacks on FanDuel plus 162, Cam Jordan at plus 120, and then you got Marcus Golden at plus 180 to record a sack. Some of those are some interesting numbers too. I also think Tyrann Mathieu to get an interception is at plus
Ooh.
580 on the yes side of that.
We gonna
So
go revenge narrative there, huh?
it's not even revenge narrative so much as opportunity where I just think it's there.
Okay.
So that one in particular to me, if you're looking to take a small amount of money and have some fun, the Matthew one to me is the one to do it with tonight. Let's do one more here, a discussion about Rondell Moore. 4.5 receptions is the number. He's projected at 5. You can bet this over here. Minus 145 is the number on that one. And then for Rondell Moore, I'm trying to look for some more Rondell Moore oriented things here. We've got 48.5 for the receiving yards. There it is. Now that projection on Fantasy Pros is under at 39.1. On FanDuel, you can get this at minus 110 right now. What do you think of these numbers for Rondell Moore? You think they're overs, unders, or stay away?
I would take the overs.
Me
I like
too.
the
I was
receptions.
actually kind of surprised that the projections are in the under.
Same. I'm surprised by that. Considering he has been. I mean, we're looking at Rondell Moore's been putting up very Greg Dortch esque type of stat lines, and going
Mhm.
against Chris Harris, I think he can eat him alive. I think Rondell Moore is going to get 7 to 8 targets in this game. I do like the receptions over more than I like the receiving yards, just because we know with Rondell, it's all short area stuff. So
Mhm.
could he catch 6 balls and then get like 38 yards? That's possible. So if you're betting one of those, I would take the over for the receptions, but I don't hate the over for receiving yards either.
All right. If you've got more questions, go over to bettingpros.com. Check out all the great content there. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel over at Betting Pros also. And don't forget to click that little bell till it goes ding for notifications so you know when these live streams pop up. We have Sunday live streams, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, college football. We're doing everything here. Oh, and it's NBA season too, if you can believe it already. So go check out Betting Pros on the YouTube channel. Be a subscriber there. And go check out that prop bet cheat sheet at bettingpros.com. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Derek Brown, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.